Mr. Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to be here in Prague, and I'm happy also to be together with you today here in this beautiful Lobkowicz Palace to talk about Europe and to talk about our place in Europe. The history of this 600-year-old place and the Lobkowicz family is closely linked to the history of Central and Eastern Europe. Confiscated by Nazis and then by communists, returned to the family only in 1989, after we have regained freedom and independence again. And today it serves as a venue where we can talk about the future of Europe, the European Union, and of the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic that is a full and proud member of the community. We are not reminding ourselves often enough that we are members whose debates and contributions shape the future of united Europe. Václav Havel put this relationship between the Czechia and Europe very well. He said, "If I feel European, it does not mean I have stopped being a Czech. It is the opposite. As a Czech, I also am an European." Poetically said, Europe is motherland of our motherlands. Europeans have enjoyed 7 decades of peace and freedom in an enlarged democratic union of 500 million citizens with one of the world's most prosperous economies. But as we all know, Europe stands now at the crossroads. Some of the old problems are gone, but multiple challenges have shaken our union's foundations. With the rise of nationalism, economic crisis, and multiple threats to our security and rights, and the increased feeling of fear and uncertainty, the people question the ability of all politicians and established institutions to solve their real problems. The geopolitical situation and tensions among old allies, Brexit and shift towards more inward-looking and protectionist policies only increase this feeling of instability. Despite of what some people say, the European Union is aware of those challenges and tries to respond to make Europe better for its citizens. A Europe that protects, empowers, and defends its citizens. A Europe that solves the problems of real people and is able to respond in time to the very dynamic nature of the challenges of our time. But before we can find a common way of addressing those problems, we should ask ourselves, what is it that we in the European Union have in common? What is the common denominator that should guide in finding the right answers? I believe that the glue that holds us together is our values. Yes, our union is a major economic power with unparalleled levels of social protection and welfare, but it is also a union of values where we cherish our freedom, our democracy, equality, and the rule of law. These are the foundations for a strong Europe. Standing up for our values and what is right can be and is difficult. We have seen recent threats in the real and also in digital world that have put our values to a test. So keeping that in mind, allow me discuss what I find the most burning problems that exist today and what can we do about it? What must we do about it? As Mr. Prime Minister already said, unprecedented migration is one of the challenges that is extremely divisive and puts our values to a real test. We see that there is a lack of confidence between the member states that the other state will do what they agreed to do to find a solution. Indeed, Italy and Greece for a very long time complained and said, "You are leaving us alone. We need to find a solution. The current system does not work. We are swamped. We are overwhelmed by the number of refugees arriving." And then, of course, we arrived at a situation of waving through, and this led to a lot of suspicion in other member states. They are not doing their job. They are waving through refugees in large numbers. So there is no state that can claim to be completely innocent in the situation we have found ourselves now. And I can only tell you today that also the Commission made mistakes. As long as we keep refusing the idea that we have a collective problem that can only be tackled with collective solutions, we will not find a solution. As long as member states just stick to their own solutions and say we are the only ones who are right, and as long as the rest of the Union does not do what we do, we will not find a solution, and I'm afraid we will fail collectively. The size and dynamics of the migration challenge means that calls for building walls are vain, especially walls in the middle of the seas. We will not stop the pressure only if we act together as Europeans, and in Africa and other migration sources areas, we will be able to stem the stream by uprooting the causes of migration. The young Africans, Afghans and others need to see future, prosperity and safety in their own countries. We must collectively build up stronger protection of our external borders. If we finally devise a common European asylum policy, if we finally make headway in having agreements with the countries of origin so that they take back the citizens, if we finally have a realistic plan of investment in Africa so that Africa develops in a way that makes people want to stay in Africa. These all are tasks on which the Commission and other institutions in Brussels work very hard. The only way we find a sustainable solution for the migration issue, which will not go away whatever we do, is if we do all these things at the same time. And on integration of refugees, I don't believe it is enough to say refugees welcome. There needs to be a plan and proper resources allocated to that. Successful integration is the key to maximizing the benefits of migration and minimize the fears of the people. But that should be a two-way process. On the one hand, refugees or migrants must identify with the values of the host society. On the other hand, the host society must proactively reach out to help them. Another challenge for Europe and its unity is upholding the rule of law. This might seem abstract, but the rule of law is a bedrock of European democracies, and it is one of the core values of the European Union, as an effective rule of law is fundamental for the respect of all values. Without the rule of law, none of us can be certain if the EU rights and laws are guaranteed and implemented. It affects corruption, trust to the people into institutions, and eventually puts in doubt the results of our elections. As guardian of the treaties, the European Commission has an important role to play when EU rules are not respected. And the recent and next period is also dominated by Brexit. It is a great achievement that so far the EU 27 managed to stay united and speak with one voice of Brexit, and It will be good if this remains the fact, and even better if we maintain a good relationship with the UK outside of the Community of Union, in particular concerning the security cooperation. We will still remain partners with our British friends. Speaking about keeping the EU united, we have to mention the new multi-annual budget of the EU, called the Multi-Annual Financial Framework for the period from 2021 on. In my view, it is an honest response to reality. Europe will have to play a greater role in providing security and stability in an unstable world at a time when Brexit will leave a big gap in the EU budget. This budget will allow the Union to do more with less and tackle the issues that matter most to our citizens. We will give the European Union the means to implement common policies and address the wide range of challenges it faces, both at home and in the world. The guiding principles for the budget proposal were two: there must be no losers and no winners. Focus EU funding on areas where the EU can generate benefit and added value. To ensure enough flexibility to react to emerging needs and challenges. For example, the budget will boost Europe's digital transformation and simplify access to EU funding and hopefully cut red tape for beneficiaries. By focusing on the areas where the Union is best placed to deliver, it is a budget for Europe that protects, empowers, and defends. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever the challenge, internal or geopolitical, you will sense that my worry is that we are not going to be united enough. This does not mean, of course, that we should always agree on everything. EU's motto is united in diversity in the end, but it is important not to have a dividing line always in the same place. We cannot create islands of isolation. And in the complicated world of today, we also need to respond to crises in transatlantic relationship by standing more independent, resolute and self-aware of prominent place of Europe. In that sense, as a politician from the Czech Republic, one thing I fear most is this notion of East-West divide. 14 years after the historical enlargement, it worries me that many people in the so-called East still feel like second-class citizens. And I am glad that the Commission supported my plan to end, for instance, the dual quality practices, which deepen these perceptions. But the East-West divide does not materialize only in fish fingers. I am sure you will agree with me. We have to listen to each other much better, and we all have to remember that enlargement was meant to be a two-way street. The idea was not that we all become the same, but that we try to understand each other's stories and ideas. The truly damaging East-West divide can run in our hearts, not on our plates. I don't think this problem is of unsurmountable proportions, not yet, but we have to take care of it before it grows and divides us for good. While the EU has to focus on finding solutions to people's problems, we, people working in Brussels, Prague or Vienna, need to remind ourselves to remain focused on the big things, while leaving things that can be dealt with on the lower levels to the governments and regions or municipalities. I am confident that this is what many voters want. The politics of identity is back in full swing. And at this moment in history, the people seem to prefer national politicians to take the responsibility. And we have to respect that. And I believe this Commission is trying to do that. I am personally, definitely trying to do that. One thing that I noticed already some time ago is that many people feel hopeless when it comes to dealing with the giants of this world. Many people feel they cannot count on fair treatment when the other side, they have a huge corporate machine, either from the new digital giants or traditional ones. When it comes to the digital world, I believe the EU can be of great help to people. Justice must be present online the same as it presents offline. Similarly, I was really angry after my many meetings with the Volkswagen after the Dieselgate, because they did not think they owe something to European consumers, while at the same time paying hundreds of millions across the Atlantic. That was not fair. That's why I have proposed the New Deal for consumers to empower the people to deal with the challenges of the 21st century. One of the elements of the New Deal is the proposal for the EU-wide collective redress, so the consumers will be able to join forces to respond to unfair practices of the companies. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission strives to be big on the big things and to act only when it can achieve better results than member states acting alone. So we will better apply the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality. But we will also identify policies where member states could perhaps achieve better results and look at ways of better involving regional and local authorities in EU policy making and delivery. I hope that the Czech Republic will keep taking a proactive stance in Europe and on Europe, create new alliances and take its fate in its own hands. I can only remind you that not only EU isn't them, EU is also us. Brussels is only an hour away from Prague. Very few of my colleagues may say so. And I am happy that while listening, Mr. Prime Minister, I heard a positive tone as well in his speech regarding the membership of the Czech Republic in the EU and the need to work together on the solutions of really big things. The European Union is for all of us, and we all have a part to play in tackling the current challenges and delivering the benefits that this unique project provides for its citizens. That includes everybody here at this conference. But before we begin to engage and discuss, I urge you to consider the human dimension and to put the Union's values at the heart of this debate. Thank you very much.